Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Money Route. I hope you're all doing fantastic today. So, here's a story I want to share that could change the way you think about negotiating, not just with landlords, but in any situation where you're trying to get the best deal possible. I'm talking about how I successfully convinced my landlord to lower my rent. Yes, you heard that right. I didn't just ask for a discount or a better deal. I got my rent reduced, and I'm going to break down the exact money script that helped me do it. Plus, I'll give you negotiation templates that you can use in your own life to get better deals, save money, and just become a more confident negotiator in general. This is the kind of stuff that'll pay off big time over the long haul, so make sure you stick with me to the end, because you're going to want to use these techniques. So grab a pen and paper, or if you're more of a digital note taker, get ready to jot down these negotiation templates that actually work. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the negotiation itself, let me give you some context about why I even needed to lower my rent in the first place. A few months ago, I was looking at my financial situation and realized that I was spending way too much on rent. It wasn't unreasonable compared to others in the area, but I knew it was something I could adjust. Now, I'm all about saving and making smarter financial decisions, and this rent was taking up a huge chunk of my budget. But here's the thing, I didn't just want to move out. I liked where I was living. It was convenient, close to work, and I had built some really solid relationships with my neighbors. But rent is a huge part of most people's budget, and in my case, it was simply eating too much of my monthly income. I had already made a few other cuts in my budget, stopped eating out as much, switched to a cheaper phone plan, started cooking more meals. But my rent? That was the big one. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and figure out how to get it reduced. That's when I thought, why not try negotiating? The worst that could happen is they say no, right? Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, well, negotiating with a landlord sounds pretty intimidating, and you're not alone in feeling that way. A lot of people just assume that landlords have the upper hand, and that's it. You think they set the price, and there's nothing you can do about it. But here's the truth. Landlords are human beings too, and just like any other business, they want to make sure their investments are working for them. They've got a tenant who is reliable, pays on time, and keeps the place in good shape. They may be more open to a conversation about lowering the rent than you think. So I knew I needed to approach this with a mindset of mutual benefit. I wasn't asking for a handout. I was positioning it as a win-win. And here's a key tip for you all. When you approach negotiations, whether it's rent or anything else, don't just think about what you want. Think about how it benefits both sides. That's how you'll build trust and a sense of partnership. All right, now let's get to the juicy part. The actual script I used to lower my rent. I broke it down into 4 parts: framing, evidence, appeal, and timing. 1. Framing the conversation. The first thing I did was mentally prepare myself to frame the conversation in a positive light. I didn't just walk into the discussion with a "please lower my rent" attitude. That's passive. I wanted to be assertive and come from a position of strength, so I began with a friendly, professional approach. The opening lines went something like this. Hey, I wanted to talk about my rent for a moment, if you have some time. I've really enjoyed living here, and I appreciate how responsive you've been whenever I've needed something fixed or addressed. I've been thinking about my financial situation, and I wanted to discuss the possibility of adjusting the rent. Notice how I started by complimenting my landlord. People like to feel appreciated, and I wanted to establish rapport before diving into the main conversation. It also framed it as a casual, friendly chat rather than a confrontation. 2. Evidence. Supporting my request. Next up, evidence. You can't just ask for something without showing why it's reasonable. In my case, I made sure to provide facts. This is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't come prepared with data to back up their request. Here's what I said next. I've been doing some research, and it seems that similar apartments in the area have been renting for slightly less than what I'm currently paying. I've also noticed that there's been an increase in vacancies in the building, and I wanted to share my thoughts on how we might be able to reach a mutually beneficial solution. I didn't just throw out random numbers or make vague claims. I had specific details. I knew what comparable units in the neighborhood were going for. I knew the vacancy rates and market trends. This data gave me leverage. It made my request seem reasonable, not just something I was pulling out of thin air. 3. the appeal. Why it's in their best interest. Now we get to the real negotiation magic. This is where I made the case for why lowering my rent made sense from their perspective. Here's how I approached this. I've been a reliable tenant. I always pay on time, I've kept the apartment in good condition, and I'm easy to work with. I'd love to stay long term, but with the changes in the market, I'm finding it difficult to make ends meet at the current rate. I want to continue being a good tenant for you, and I believe adjusting the rent would be a fair move for both of us. If we could find a way to bring the rent down a bit, I'd be happy to sign an extended lease right away. This is where I shifted the conversation from my personal need to a business opportunity for the landlord. I pointed out that keeping a good, reliable tenant is often more valuable than having to search for a new one, especially if vacancies are on the rise. I also tied in a commitment to a longer lease, making it clear that this wasn't just about getting a short-term benefit for me. It was a long-term relationship for both of us. 4. Timing. The right moment. Now, timing is everything. I didn't just bring this up randomly. I waited for the right time in the lease cycle. My lease was coming up for renewal, which is a natural opportunity to renegotiate terms. But here's the kicker. I didn't wait until the very last minute. I started this conversation a couple of months before my lease was up, giving the landlord plenty of time to consider the request. I also kept the tone of the conversation friendly and non-confrontational. This isn't about trying to strong-arm anyone into a decision. It's about creating a dialogue, not a standoff. So after laying out the evidence, presenting my case, and keeping the conversation professional and respectful, what happened? My landlord actually agreed to lower my rent by 10%. I was honestly pretty surprised, but it felt great knowing that all the work I put into researching and framing my case paid off. Now, I know what you're really here for, the templates. So here are the exact phrases you can use when negotiating in your own life. I'm going to give you some practical templates that'll help you make your case in any negotiation. Hey, I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about this and I wanted to see if we could talk about a possible adjustment to the terms. I really value insert what's important to both of you, and I'd love to see how we can work together to find a solution. I've been doing some research, and I found that insert data, market rates, alternatives, etc. I think this is a good time to reevaluate because insert reason. I've been really committed to insert actions that demonstrate your reliability, paying on time, keeping things in good condition, etc. And I'd love to continue working with you. If we could come to a more favorable agreement, I'd be happy to commit to insert long-term benefit. Would it be possible for us to revisit this before insert time frame? I want to give us both ample time to make the best decision moving forward. So there you have it. That's the full breakdown of how I convinced my landlord to lower my rent and how you can use these negotiation techniques in your own life. Remember, negotiation is a skill, and like any skill, it gets better with practice. So, go out there, use these templates, and start negotiating like a pro. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what other negotiation scenarios you'd like to see me cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.